Hi everybody, and welcome to Garden Style. Well, I finally got the veggie beds planted. I have brand new raised beds here. These are actually made of a recycled plastic, as here in the Northwest, anything made out of wood is just not going to last very long due to the fact we have so much water here. But I found these on Amazon, one of my favorite places to go shopping for things like this, and I will put in the description box where I got it from, as these were super easy. I am single, I live alone, I'm not into sawing wood and making things as far as that's concerned. I figure the easier the better, not to mention I work full time, so I don't have a whole lot of time to spend on building things as much as I would like to. But I found these are awesome. I didn't need any tools. All I had to do was set these raised beds on the ground in place of the ones that I had here already. These are 4 by 4 foot raised beds, and the reason I got 4 by 4 foot is it's very easy to reach into the center. This one happens to be 2 that I have placed one on top of the other, just due to the fact that I want to plant root crops in here next year. Now I have a couple of root crops in here already. I went ahead and planted the carrots and some scallions in here. But next year I want to put in potatoes as well as the carrots, onions, and they just do better if they have a deeper area to set their roots. And the soil is just super loose so that you end up with some gorgeous vegetables by the time they come out of your raised beds. So I only have one of these, that's a 4 by 4 foot, and I will show you the other one that I have that's actually shorter. And that particular one is what I put all my squash into, cucumbers, I have my peppers in here, parsley, I've planted chamomile, I've planted dill. It is amazing how much you can get in a 4 by 4 foot garden bed. Now, being I live alone, I don't need a whole lot of space, and even if you don't live alone and you don't have a lot of space to dedicate to your vegetable garden, you don't need rows and rows and rows. In fact, that's actually a waste of space by doing it that way. When it comes to square foot gardening, the closer you can set your plants, which is about every foot. If I had a grid in here, I would actually show you how I do that. I kind of broke the rules a little bit this year just because I'm a little late in getting it in. But basically you could set out a grid where you get 4 1-foot spots going across and 4 going towards the back. And you can put 1 to 2 plants depending on what it is you're planting, or you can put up to a dozen in there, especially if you've got things like carrots or scallions, onions, that sort of thing. They can be set closer together. So you don't require a whole lot of space to grow your veggies into. Now, what I'm sitting next to here actually is basil. I planted a couple plants of basil in here, and I can smell it already just sitting here. It makes you hungry. Basil, a lot of folks struggle with it, but it's actually really easy to grow. The 2 basic things you need to know about basil is, first of all, make sure it has very good drainage. You don't want it sitting in water. And don't let it dry out at the same time. You want to make sure that it's getting plenty of water. Now, the type of soil that I have put in here is fish composted soil. You would think it would smell bad, but if it's a really good composted soil, they have actually baked this soil so well to where you don't have a smell. The plants will absolutely love the natural organic nutrients that the soil has to offer. Now, my basil plants do way better if I just go and pinch off the tops of them, like you see here, and I will do an up close of that. And you can take this in and you can cook with it fresh, or you can dry it out. And as I go into my herb video, which will be right after this one, I will show you how I go about harvesting my herbs, drying them out, so that you have them throughout the entire winter going into next spring when we're ready to plant them again. Now, basil, up here in my area anyway, is not a perennial. This is an annual. So I try to grow as much of it as I possibly can because I use it a lot in my cooking. And I love it with tomatoes. It's just a natural with tomatoes, as well as any of your spaghettis, lasagnas. There's just so many infinite things that you can cook with basil. And the fresher, the better. So I find when I pinch the tips off, it is actually going to encourage this plant to make more. So if you've got some that are starting to stretch out a little bit, like mine did, just a little bit, to where you've got a little bit of space here, I just pinch them off to the next node, and I'll get up close so I can show you how to do that. And you will find that they will just bush out and give you even more. So I can enjoy fresh basil throughout the rest of this summer, and then I can dry it out and have it available to me during the fall and the winter. The trick is, don't let it go into bloom. But if you see that it's ready to, like I can see it's trying to make a little bud up there on the top, that is the perfect time to start harvesting your herbs, just due to the fact that it has put so much energy into the top of its plant. That is where all of its flavor is. So just before it blooms is when it is the most flavorful, which is why I tell folks, don't wait until your herbs have bloomed, because by then the taste as well as the smell and how potent they are actually starts to fade away, as they have put all their energy into making those flowers, and once you let them flower, then all that flavor starts to fade away. So the very best time to start harvesting herbs, of course, is just before they're ready to set bloom. So it's all a matter of timing and getting it just right. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get behind the camera, show you how I have planted. I just have 2 beds right here. This is all I'm going to need for the rest of the summer, believe it or not. But I'm going to show you what I have squished into this 4 by 4 foot space that I'm sitting on right here, and also this other one that you probably can't see in the camera, which is a little bit shorter. And I put in trellises in the back, and trying something a little new this year, but I will get behind the camera so you can see up close how I have planted these plants and how much I'm actually going to get out of these garden beds, even though a lot of my seeds are just now starting to come up. But it's never too late. I always say during June and July, especially here in the Northwest, is usually the best time to start planting our gardens, just due to the fact that the soil is warm, they aren't going to drown from excess rain, and I will still have plenty to harvest by the time August and September get here for vegetables during the winter. Alright, so here we go. Okay, so this is the shorter bed. As you can see, it's about 9 inches off the ground. And when I went to go install these, I didn't put anything underneath. A lot of folks think you need to put weed block and all that other stuff in there. I actually have no issues with that. I didn't with my old beds, and not suspecting I'm going to have any issues here. But this is super easy to maintain just because it is smaller. But let me show you what all I have put in here. Now, in this shorter bed, it also gets just blasted with sun right here. So it gets about 6 to 7 hours of sun during the day. The very first plant you see here is a gooseneck squash, or a yellow squash. And right next door to it, I have put in a cucumber that you see there. And in the other spot, I have put a zucchini. And you'll notice it's 1 plant per foot. I gave 2 feet to the gooseneck squash, just because squash does so well here. It will need some space. But I'm doing something a little different this year, and I'm actually going to train them up this trellis. That way, they're not bleeding out into the rest of the bed, covering up the rest of the plants that I have planted in here. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but I'm going to try to show you. But here, I have some seedlings starting to come up, and this is dill, which I absolutely love, especially when I go to pickle cucumbers during the fall. I use a garlic dill recipe, which I will put in my next video when I get ready to harvest the dill. And I put in several rows of that. I've also put in chamomile, which I absolutely love as an herb, and they're not quite up yet. Not quite there yet. Well, I might see one right here. Those will be coming up soon. And then here, I have also put in pepper plants. And I put them up in the front, just due to the fact these were going to get, you know, fairly tall. And I didn't want them shading out some of the other plants. So keep in mind what direction the sun is actually shining in as far as how you're going to place your plants. Now I put the taller ones towards the back. They're going to grow up the trellis because this bed actually faces kind of south-southwest. So the sun is actually going to come along the sides of it, kind of where I'm standing right now. And I didn't want them shading out some of the other plants as well. So that's something to keep in mind when you go to plant your veggie beds, is just be careful where you're placing them so that you don't have one plant shading out the other plant. So this first plant's a pepper plant. It's going to get fairly tall. We struggle with peppers here in the Northwest just due to the fact it doesn't quite get hot enough, which is another reason it's not so bad that I have waited, because we are now at the warmest time of the year and these things are just going to take off and fly. In fact, I already had a flower bud on this. As you can see, they have died off, and where I have this, that's actually going to turn into a pepper. So I have yellow and red peppers planted in here. This is one, and then the other one is right over here on the other side, and you can see where it's blooming already, and that's a really good sign. And then it's just a matter of waiting. In fact, I have one right here, and with green, red, yellow type peppers. This particular one happens to be a yellow pepper, or no, I'm sorry, he's a red one. He's a sweet bell pepper. They are always green to start off with, and our struggle here in the Northwest is getting them to actually ripen during the fall. But I don't think this plant's going to have any issue with that. I think he'll be plenty ripe by the time, so that was just kind of cool that I have a pepper already. And you can see I've got more blooms, so more will be coming. And then right in between I planted some parsley. This is like a staple in my kitchen. Parsley goes into just about everything. This happens to be a flat Italian parsley, and the wind has just blown him to death. But as he starts to get larger and starts to send out more sprays, I of course start cutting it. And the more you cut it, of course, the more it's going to send out. So you can plant some herbs in there, mix them in with your veggies, and take advantage of your square foot garden. Now, over here, I have a double raised bed. And this is what I'm going to be putting most of the root crops into. Being I'm a little late this year, root crops didn't exactly go in here this particular year. I have a couple, as you can see, some are already starting to come up, and I just planted these less than a week ago, and they're already starting to come up, and that's just due to the fact that the soil is real loose, it's nice and warm, and I have been adamant about making sure that it has water, especially in the mornings before it gets really hot. Then right here you're going to notice I have the basil plant, and as I was showing earlier in the video, like for instance right here, you could tell where I cut it once and it's starting to take two plants now. It's starting to grow out with two. And then I'll take you over to this side and you see this big one right here. Now if I go down to where I see two leaf nodes, see that underneath? All I'm going to do is just pinch that back. I can just do it with my fingers, and that thing is going to send out two more and get even bushier and bigger. Oh gosh, it smells so good. So good. And then right next door here I have put in some Swiss chard, and I love this stuff not only because it tastes good and it's good for you, but it's also really pretty. You can see the red in the stems here. And I've actually seen a lot of gardens where if they didn't have room for veggies, they would actually plant these right in with their flowers and stuff, just because it's so pretty. It's actually kind of an ornamental plant at the same time, but full of nutrients and really good for you, and this thing will just thrive. And next door, some more basil. I can never seem to get enough. Went in there. Now, on the inside, I have planted carrots, which are all starting to come up now. And I've also planted scallions, which haven't quite come up yet. I have a feeling they'll be the last to come up. But in the very back, I have beans. And what I did was I planted 2 seeds per spot. So I'm probably going to get about 16 plants out of this small little area, and that is all I'm going to need. And as you can see, they're already starting to bust out. I've already got some seedlings coming up, and that's just way cool. And of course, a trellis right behind them is what I'm going to be training them on, so that they can grow all the way up to the top and provide me with some beans for the fall, which will be awesome. Now normally I would probably have, oh my gosh, 4, 8, 12, about 16 different plants in here. But because I'm late, I didn't want to go overboard. And this will just be an interesting little experiment to see just how much I get out of this, being I've planted it so late. Now as for the broccoli, I did not put it into the beds here. I actually planted them in a pot right here. And I've already harvested some broccoli out of the pots. So yes, you can put vegetables in containers. If you're lacking on space, there you go. Now with broccoli, I had to purchase these a little earlier in the year, and I wasn't quite ready for them yet, but I didn't want them sitting in their little 6-packs. I didn't start them by seed, I just got the plants. Plus we had so much rain, the poor things would have drowned. So I stuck them in the pots, and they are loving life, and I've already been able to harvest some broccoli out of these guys. And I have a couple pots of them actually. I have another one sitting way over there of broccoli, just because it happens to be one of my favorite vegetables. And then right in here, I have a little patch of strawberries. These are ever-bearing strawberries, so they're not necessarily the type that come out with strawberries first thing in the spring. But once they start to produce strawberries, they will not stop. They don't quit until the very first frost, as long as you keep them watered. And as you can see, I've got more flowers right in there, which just means some strawberries are coming. And I've already harvested some out of here already. It's just a small little patch that you see there. And it's serving two purposes. I'm using them not only for the berries, but it's an excellent ground cover, and I have a slope here that I'm trying to cover. And you can see that they're already sending out little runners, and I'm just going to let them go to town and just keep replanting themselves, and I'll have a big patch of strawberries here that's not only holding in the hillside as one purpose, but it's also going to provide me with some strawberries. Yeehaw! So that's kind of cool. Okay, now another plant we struggle with here in the Northwest is tomatoes. So I usually put them in a separate container just because they do get so huge. I didn't want them in the beds shading the other plants. And I had some uses for the trellises anyway that I wanted to use for something else. So it's just one pot of a tomato plant that I put in this year. But next year I'm probably going to get like a half barrel, a really large half barrel, to take advantage of the space that I have here. Then I can plant several. And I am lucky enough to have this ugly chain link fence right behind, and that is actually how I'm going to stake him. I will just string him to the fence as he gets bigger, and I have already got tomatoes coming, which is pretty amazing. And I think the heat helped with that. You can see them in there, and lots of blooms. Now the ticket to tomatoes and getting a whole lot of them is they need to be in a very rich organic soil to start with, and that's what he is in. He's in a fish compost, the same as what I put in the beds, and plenty of water. But I also give him a little extra boost of a water-soluble fish type fertilizer that not only helps it to produce more tomatoes, because tomato plants are hungry plants. They need lots of food in order to produce lots of tomatoes, big ones. And hopefully we'll have a nice hot summer, and I will have these ripe by, the end of August, maybe beginning of September. But yeah, tomato plants are definitely a struggle for us here in the Northwest, just because it cools off so fast and it's hard to get them to ripen. But here we go. We're going to try it anyway. I do every year, and I seem to be okay with it. Now the plan is next year to have some big tubs in the center for tomatoes, and I'm also putting in a hanging contraption that a friend of mine made for me, where I can hang 2 baskets, which I hope to have cherry tomatoes hanging from those by next year. Just haven't installed it yet, but I definitely want to take advantage of all the space that I have here, which actually isn't that much considering these are 4 by 4 foot beds. But I highly recommend gardening this way, especially if you work full-time like I do and you just don't have a lot of space or a lot of time. This is a great way to be able to reach everything. They stay well watered, and they will just reward you with a lot of fruit and vegetables by the end of the summer. Alright you guys, that's a quick little veggie lesson on the veggie beds here, and what I have done to save space is I dedicate a lot of space over here to the left with all the herbs that I'm going to cover with you in the next video. Everything you see in here is edible, and that's what I've dedicated this strip to. Alright, quick lesson on veggie beds, raised beds. They were awesome, super easy to put in, and you got a little demo of that. And now on to the herbs. Okay, so I hope that encourages you to take whatever small space you may have and start growing your own food. It is by far the best way to go. It tastes the best. It's super easy. And of course, you have any questions or things you're struggling with when it comes to vegetable garden, by all means, send me your questions either in the comment box below this description box in this video, or you can send me an email to GardnStyleNwest@gmail.com or my website at GardnStyleNW.com. Now, when it comes to square foot gardening, I could go into a whole new ramble about square foot gardening, but the best place to go is squarefootgardening.com, and it will give you all the information you need to get your own vegetable garden started. Square foot gardening has been around for a little while. It was started by Mel Bartholomew, who is actually an engineer turned veggie gardener. He decided there was way too much space being wasted when it came to veggie beds. And honestly, the closer you can plant your plants, the less weeds you're going to have to deal with, as well as be able to harvest a whole lot more out of a little bit of space. So you can certainly get more education when it comes to square foot gardening at squarefootgardening.com, or just go to YouTube. There's lots of videos out there that will actually explain to you how to build the beds, how to set the grid, and how to plant the plants. And it's actually, I went to finegardening.com a couple of years ago, and they actually have a neat little graph that you can do on your computer, and you just drag the plants down to what it is you want to eat, what it is you want to plant, and it'll let you know how many per square foot that you can actually put in. It's just super, super easy, and a great way to save space and still enjoy the fruits of your veggie bed, so to speak. All right, you guys, appreciate you tuning in, and glad you're here. By all means, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, as I've got a ton of information that I'm going to be cramming your direction during the month of July. All right, you guys enjoy those veggie beds, enjoy your gardens, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.